Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Misty.
My name is Misty Luminais. I'm here with Earl Williams, and we're doing an interview for the Voicing in Action project for the community research portion. Today is October 13th, and we're at the East Cleveland Public Library. So we're going to start out pretty broad. Can you describe your experience with the Voicing in Action project?
Yes, my experience as a community researcher has been one of varied interest. I actually was kind of the behind the camera person for the majority of the interviews that we did, but I found the experience to be very enlightening, very eye-opening. Just interesting just to hear what a lot of the interviewees had to say about the city of East Cleveland, past and present. Yeah.
And so why did you choose to stay behind the camera?
Actually, I was just more comfortable, and we had only done a limited number of interviews, and I was just more comfortable doing it behind the camera, and as opposed to actually doing the actual interviewing, to be honest with you.
And do you think with more experience you would have started interviewing yourself?
Absolutely, yes, I would have.
And what about the training component?
Well, I thought that the training was good. I thought it was adequate, especially having the refresher classes too after the initial training. And so I actually learned how to operate a video cam. I had had some experience way back in the 90s, kind of being a videographer for a company I used to work for. I used to maintain their library. They would have different seminars and whatnot. And I would actually videotape those, but those were the old ones with the big cameras and the VHS tapes. So this was a nice refresher, and it's, you know, more digital now, so I did learn a lot.
And what about how was your experience with the monthly meetings?
Oh, I enjoyed the meetings. It kind of brought you up to date on what was going on, what was transpiring with everyone with respect to the interviews and the process, being able to watch the videos and to critique them and to make sure that the lighting was correct and the camera was in the right position, and just hearing everybody's feedback was very interesting.
Okay. So, has your perception of the community changed since you started the project?
Actually, it has. It has changed. You know, there's still some positives, still some negatives that I see, but it's given me a more keener insight as to what the East Cleveland community is actually about. I mean, an example, I'm not a native of East Cleveland. I've been here for 7 years. And when I first came here, I actually saw East Cleveland kind of from a negative lens. I saw it as a city that was actually struggling financial, you know, had been in financial emergency, I guess, on a number of times in the past. And most recently, I think they were in financial emergency as well, financial crisis. So, but I can see where, you know, things are getting better. I think a lot of East Cleveland folk have a strong commitment to community here, and I think that was evidenced by the support and the turnout to keep the library, the activism surrounding the Huron Road Hospital, and let's see what else. Keeping the post office open was another one. Yeah, people got behind that and they protested and they said, hey, you know, we don't want our post office closed, so let's see that commitment.
And did you know about all of these activist events before you did the interview?
One, yes, I did. About the post office, yes, I did, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But did you know about Huron Road and the library?
And no, I did not. Okay. I learned that as a result of the interviews. Okay. Yeah. And attending some of the Democratic Club meetings too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Has it made you feel more part of the community?
It has. It has. I feel more connected to the community as a result of being involved in some of the activities. In fact, when I first moved to East Cleveland 7 years ago, one of the ways that I was introduced to one aspect of the community through the arts and theater was participating in 2 plays, having starring roles in 2 plays at the community theater. So that was very, very interesting. Met a lot of really nice people in the theater world.
Was that the East Cleveland Public Library?
No, it was the East Cleveland Theater, Community Theater, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you talked a little bit about the camera, but what other skills did you learn through the Voicing in Action project?
Actually, by listening, I learned some interviewing skills. You know, what types of questions to ask, for example, asking open-ended questions sometimes as opposed to closed-ended questions to get people to actually maybe come out of their shell and feel more comfortable opening up and discussing really what's on their mind. So interviewing techniques and how some people open up more than others. And I thought that was very interesting. Some people may have held back a little bit. Some people didn't hold back.
And did you learn any way to help people open up more? Was there anything that you could do to help people?
Yes, I think it's how the questions are posed. I think that you can, first of all, you can set the tone by making a person feel comfortable even before the camera's on. And letting them know if they're not comfortable answering the question that they can pass on that or whatever. But I think it's how the questions, a lot of times how the questions are phrased, how they're asked, can make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And asking opening-ended questions. Yeah.
And do you feel like your analytical skills have changed at all?
Not so much my analytical skills. I would say perhaps my listening skills have improved as a result.
So one of the things that we talk about a lot in the monthly meetings is kind of connecting the dots. And I know that both you and Michelle have been involved in different kinds of community activism prior to this. But do you feel like the Voicing in Action project has helped you understand people's individual experiences in terms of structural, so people's individual experiences of racism in terms of structural racism, or is that a connection that you already understood?
From a personal standpoint, I already understood it, but it did help. It did help make that connection. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because you had a lot of residents here who've been here 40, 50, 60 years, and they've seen how how the city's transformed actually over the years. And a lot of that some of it was due to, racism, I think, a lot of times, and white flight and people moving out to the suburbs and things of that nature. Yeah, it did help.
And can we talk about how the setting of the interview impacts how the interview goes? We can even talk about the setting that we're in right now.
Okay, the setting, meaning like where you're actually doing the interview?
Uh-huh.
I thought it was a good idea, in a lot of cases, actually doing it at the person's home. Number one, because they could set it up pretty much the way they want to, and I think a lot of times people are more comfortable being at home, being in their own home. And so it made for, I think in a lot of cases, a more relaxed environment for the interviewee. Now, sometimes there were some occasions where we had to, do something with the lighting to make sure we had enough light. There was an occasion or two where we actually had to move lamps to give it ample lighting and things like that, make little changes, little nuances. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how comfortable, we're in the library, how comfortable are you here?
As the interview goes on, I'm becoming more comfortable. Initially, there was a little anxiety, being that not only that we were at the library, but that there were other individuals in the library as well, in the same room, but I'm okay.
This is definitely less than ideal, but I think it works.
Right. We make the best of what we have.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how would you prepare for an interview?
Firstly, by familiarizing yourself with the questions that you're going to ask. And it always helps too, but you don't always have upfront information. If you happen to know a little something about the individual that you're going to interview, if you have a little background on them, that also helps too. But being familiar with the questions and exactly what kinds of answers we're trying to get from the questions helps.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And what about like setting up the interview process? You and Michelle often worked as a team. How did that go? Like who was contacting the possible interviewees and setting up interviews, getting them consent forms?
Michelle actually did that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I basically set up the camera, did the interviewing, put my little 2 cents in every now and then, you know, yeah.
And how convenient was it for you to get the camera from campus?
It was fairly convenient. It was fairly convenient, yeah, because we don't live too far, and a lot of times on my way home from work, I can come right past the university, so.
And did you feel like after a while you were able to set up the camera pretty quickly?
Yes, after a few snafus early on, yeah. It's like anything else, I think the more you do it, the more familiar you become with it, yeah.
Is there anything that would have made it easier in the beginning for you to set it up? Like, do you think more practice?
More practice. Yeah, definitely more practice. Yeah, you become more efficient with the more practice that you have.
So maybe some more hands-on training before you actually go out in the field?
Yes, I think that would definitely be a benefit. Absolutely.
And did you feel comfortable going into other people's homes?
I did. I felt comfortable. Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you're at the point now that you could have an interview by yourself where you could run both the camera and do the questions?
I do. I think I could.
So what has been the most surprising or challenging aspect of the work?
The most challenging, I would say probably trying to meet people's schedules. Everybody's busy. A lot of people work. I work. And then sometimes you have to work longer hours than what you anticipated. So I think that being able to coordinate people's schedules, you know, was one thing. And basically that was probably the most challenging.
Did anything surprise you?
You about the interviewing itself, or
the whole
the whole process?
Yeah.
Well, actually, how fast the time went by. Because if I'm not mistaken, has it been almost 2 years? Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's been almost 2 years. Just how fast the time elapsed from when we first started with you guys, first started working with Dr. Rhonda, till 2 years later. Just amazing how fast the time went by, you know. But understand that we got a lot of really, really nice interviews, a lot of nice oral narratives as a result of it. So it's a lot of work for everybody.
Were you expecting people to be so open during their interviews?
Yes and no. I think that some people, you know, have some people just going to speak whatever's on their mind, and you have some people that are going to be a little bit reserved because maybe they think it may be some repercussion, some impact, you know, especially if if they're employed by the city, they may not want to say anything negative about the administration, anything like that. But yeah, people were open, and that's a good thing. You want open and honest feedback. Yeah.
So thinking back to the beginning of the project, after your training, how did what you actually do differ from what you thought you would be doing?
How did it differ? Well, actually, you guys were pretty much on point in terms of, I think, setting our expectations. You know, but of course, from the onset, you can't anticipate, you know, certain things that come up sometime during the process, like scheduling conflicts, or maybe someone deciding that they don't want to be interviewed, and things that are out of your control. but I think that you guys, set the proper expectations from the onset. I think one of the things that did surprise me, back to your original question, I think a lot of the people were very open and very, very comfortable. I mean, some people like went on and on and on and started talking about their family and all of that kind of stuff. So that surprised me in some instances, and just how open some people were. Mm-hmm. And you'd have to, some people you have to like pull things out of. Some people just like tell all, so that was interesting. Yeah.
Did you guys use the biographical sheet?
Yes.
How easy was that to use?
Was that the sheet that they filled out prior to the interview with you at SM? I did. Well, yeah. It was easy in some instances, and then it was kind of cumbersome in others. In terms of like time and taking time away for them to fill it out, maybe prior to the interview and things like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
So.
what about, so in our consent forms, we tell interviewees that it'll be an hour to an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Did that fall in line with how it ended up? Like, how long did it actually take you to generally do an interview?
It varied from interview to interview. I think one was as short as maybe 40 minutes or so, and one we had with this one gentleman that was probably 3 hours, 3.5 hours. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it kind of varied. Yeah.
And did interviewees ever be like, wait a minute, you said this was going to take an hour and a half, like what are we doing here 2 hours later?
No, I did not experience that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. No.
So, would you suggest other people participate in projects like these?
Yes, I would.
So what advice would you have for future community researchers?
Wow. I guess just to have an open mind, to have a long contact list if you can, because you're not going to be able to maybe get around to everybody, or some people are not going to do it, or you're not going to be able to coordinate your schedules. I say be relaxed, be comfortable, make the interviewer feel at ease, and just phrase your questions the way you want them to be answered. And certainly to familiarize yourself with the use of the camera, if you can, as much as you can prior to your interview.
So you said you'd had a couple of early snafus. Did that result in you losing interviews?
No, it did not. It just delayed the setup process a little bit. I'm trying to think. Was there one where we couldn't do it? One, there was a problem with the camera. I thought it was maybe something that I didn't do, but I think that there was an issue with the camera itself. And but that person was very amenable, very open, said, she definitely wanted us to come back and do it, and we came back and had a good interview with her. Yeah, so just the one time. Yeah.
How do you define social justice?
Social justice. I think social justice is a vehicle to ensure that there's certain things that are in place to make sure that everybody has equal access, to make sure that there's equal opportunity for everyone, and that because there's always bias. So social justice, I think, works to protect those people from certain biases and discrimination and things like that, to have a more equitable playing field. So I think it tries to, what's the word I'm looking for? Again, have a vehicle to make those kinds of things happen.
And how has your definition changed over the course of the project?
How has it changed? I guess to me, I have maybe a little bit better understanding of what it is. I mean, really to me it means community, community involvement, building better, stronger neighborhoods through activism, through actually getting involved, attending meetings, going out and, getting to know your neighbors, cleaning up the streets, your neighborhoods, maintaining, and also getting out in the streets when you want changes, to affect change. Again, the Huron Road Hospital, the library, the post office, people got out there and they held meetings and they protested, and that's part of building community.
I mean, prior to this, you've been involved in activism stuff, so you know that it's work. It's not just you show up every once in a while.
Yes, yeah, it is work. It is work, yeah. It takes commitment.
So do you think the kind of work that we did in the Voicing in Action project, collecting oral life narratives and then doing the community dialogues and then seeding community-driven initiatives, do you think that that's important for social justice work?
I think so. I think it's important, yes.
Can you explain how?
Well, I think people's oral narratives are important because it gives one a perspective on how people feel about their community, how they felt about it in past years, changes that they would like to see. They want to see East Cleveland get back to the thriving community that it once was. And it's gonna take a lot of work. It's gonna take time. It took time for it to be where it is right now currently. So it's gonna take time to fix all those problems. But oral narratives are important because everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. And there's a lot of history here. And again, you've had people who have been residents here for 40, 50, 60 years that actually knew the old, thriving East Cleveland. And I think a lot of folks want to see it get back to where it once was.
So if everyone has a story, how important is it to make sure everyone's perspective is represented if we're thinking about change? Because not everyone had the same perspective about Huron Road. We had several people that really came out and did the protest, and we had several people that felt very differently about that. How do you reconcile, or why is it important to have those positions represented? Because
everybody is entitled to his or her own opinion. In a lot of cases, when it comes to that, a lot of times there's no right or no wrong, and everybody's entitled to the way they feel about a certain circumstance. Yeah. So I think we take all those and just extract, the positives that you can out of it.
And so you attended a couple of our community dialogues. Do you feel like we were able to represent the range of people's opinions? And do you think how do you think that helped us frame the dialogue that happened after we showed the interview snippets?
I think the way it was framed was good. I like the way that you guys frame it and the way you kind of dissected it and got the different varying viewpoints. I thought that was very good the way you did that. So
do you feel like it was, sometimes I worry that it was more divisive than unifying? On the one hand, part of me wanted to show people all kind of on the same page, that we could all take unified action, but on the other hand, I felt like we had to remain true that East Cleveland is not some monolithic entity, that's made up of individual residents. So did you feel like that could have been divisive?
To an extent, yes. Yeah. But then there were a lot of people too that were on the same page. So, I don't know, 6 in one hand, half a dozen of the other. I think some good things will come out of it.
Do you feel more empowered?
Yes.
How so?
Well, to know that there are things that you can do to try to, better your community. All you have to do is just, spend a little bit of time sometimes and just get involved. And you see that there are a lot of people who are interested in getting involved, and there are a lot of people who are interested in this community. And a lot of times you can see who the worker bees are out here in the community too by attending some of these meetings and being a part of the Western Action Project.
So I think one of the most powerful things that I learned is that people sometimes felt that they wanted to do something to improve the community, but they felt kind of hopeless. But other people, when they felt like there were concrete steps that they could take to improve the community, they felt more empowered as well. And I don't really have a question about that, but I found that I saw that a lot. The people who felt defeated felt like there was nothing that they could do to make a difference, and the people that felt empowered felt like there might be a lot to do and it might be overwhelming, but that there were things that they could do that they could see the improvement. So I thought that was important for us to take away.
Well, it is important. I think that you probably shouldn't take a defeatist attitude unless you've been involved in it and you've taken steps to make changes. But I can see where people would be frustrated, feel disenfranchised if they try to do things over and over and there are no positive changes as a result of it. And a lot of people do feel disempowered because there are a lot of people that feel disenfranchised and they're struggling just to make it every day, and they feel like they can't affect any kind of change, and that their vote won't make any difference, and that their community involvement won't make any difference. And it's understandable why some people feel that way, but then if you have a defeatist attitude, then you'll never affect change. Everything will always be the same.
Do you feel like it's easy to stay energized? Like, do you feel like meeting once a month helped you keep that kind of level of commitment and energy? Or was that too much? Would you like to?
Meeting once a month was fine. Meeting once a month was fine. That was not a problem.
I always left those meetings feeling really good about the project.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's nice to get the feedback and everything. It's a nice meeting.
So how do you feel the project has changed the community or the participants?
Well, I think that it's given people something more to think about in terms of maybe some of the steps that they need to take to try to move the city forward. I think that even some of the people who are being interviewed, I think it empowered them to speak what's on their mind and the changes that they would like to see going forward. And I think by us doing the interviews, we actually got a better understanding of how people feel, and maybe it even brought to our attention some changes that need to be made, or things that people would like to do, see happen in the city. So I think it benefited both the interviewer and the interviewee. You hear different people's perspectives, and
do you feel like it's impacted the community at all, like on a larger scale, more than just like the people interviewed and the people interviewing?
I think that it has to some extent. I also think that if people were to see once the documentary is done, once everything is put together, and the people actually get a chance to see it, I think of a lot of and what you guys have filmed. I think of a lot. If that's shared with a lot of people, that a lot more people would probably feel empowered, to do something. I
do feel like it's been really interesting, like what the group dynamic was when I joined in 2012, like in December of 2012, and how we've all kind of grown together, like as a cohort, and like the changes that I see in myself after having been with everybody for almost 2 years. And so, like, is there anything, aside from just like being exposed to different perspectives, is there anything that you see as far as the relationships between community researchers? How have those changed?
I think that they've improved some. I think that people have become closer, that we've been able to learn some things about each other that we didn't know, both, I think, personally and professionally. And I also think as a result of that, a lot of people are going to, stay in contact even when when this is completed.
I do feel like one of the strengths is kind of the networks that we've been building.
Mm-hmm.
So like the interactions between community researchers, but also like the networks that are formed between community researchers and interviewees. Like I wouldn't have known Miss Mac otherwise, but now I feel like I could call her up and be like, oh, I have this person that's interested in the sports program.
Okay.
Like that now we all know better kind of the human resources that people bring to the table. So that's one of the things that I've been enjoying learning about.
Okay, yeah. Me as well.
So what would you improve or change about the project?
What would I improve? I thought that it was pretty well organized. I thought that the monthly meetings were beneficial. Not to mention the great food. Thank you. That was always good and healthy choices. But I think that if I had any suggestions, it would probably be, to your point earlier, maybe a little bit more extensive camera training, and also maybe more, setting up maybe more mock interviews.
What about more real interviews? Like, do you think that your experience would have been different had you been interviewed off the bat? Like before we sent everybody out, if everyone had to actually do a full interview with somebody, one of the community researchers?
Yes. But we actually did kind of do that though. We did kind of do it. I remember Brandon, it was many, like a mini interview. Yeah. But yes, I do think so. Yeah, it would be better.
So you did not do an interview for the project, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, do you feel like just doing this interview now, has that changed how you feel about being behind the camera? Would you think about things differently?
Yes, I would.
Like what?
Like being more prepared, and opening up, and it kind of puts perspective with, like, when you're actually asking questions and being behind the camera, you can see how someone is actually maybe thinking about their answer, or how some of it just comes out naturally, and so you're like in that, well, not hot seat, so to speak. Yeah. So.
Because I think that's probably going to be one of my suggestions, that everyone is actually interviewed before we start going out in the field and interviewing other people.
I think that's a good idea.
And how did you feel about the feedback that you got? After the interview, I would email everybody kind of what they did really well and then what they could do better in the future.
Great idea. Great idea. We love the critiques. Love the feedback.
Do you think it would have been better had we met one-on-one and talked about it rather than an email or doing it over the phone? Would there be a way that was more effective for you?
Probably one-on-one. One-on-one would be good. Yeah. But one-on-one, would you actually be looking at the footage? Yeah, that would be great, because then you could actually see exactly what you're referring to. Yeah.
feel about like I know that the time that it took to get the review of the interview was much longer than we anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
Was that too much time? Were you able to remember back to the interview and be like, oh yeah, the lighting in there was different, or?
We were able to remember.
Okay.
I was able to remember, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Is there anything that you would like to add?
No, except thank you for the opportunity to participate in the Voice in Action project. It's been a pleasure working with you, Misty, you and Dr. Rhonda.
Thank you.
Thank you.